Hey, it's Brian Light back with some stuff you can use to change your life. I don't know what to call this segment, but I come across these things. It's nice. How to prioritize your work when your manager doesn't. Now, this is something I've encountered numerous times when people say, hey, you just have to define what your own things are. And then they complain you don't get any work done or enough work done, but they didn't tell you what order, what or priorities and things like that. So how can you do this when you're not sure what comes first? Prioritizing work can be frustrating, especially if you work for an hands-off manager or a company that doesn't give you clear goals. That's a big red flag. Hands-off isn't so bad, but clear goals, that's necessary. Most of us face this reality each and every day. The frequently cited research of Robert Kaplan and Dave Norton shows that more than 90% of employers don't fully understand their company strategy or how what's expected of them to help achieve company goals. How do you get measured in, how do you get raises? Compounding the problem, recent research shows that global executives say they have too many conflicting priorities. Yep. In a world where conflicting and unclear priorities are the norm, you can learn to prioritize your own work and feel frustration from a job well done. A former colleague of mine would constantly give, depending what project she was talking about, the same person would give you conflicting priorities on her own projects. That's not good. First, check your mindset when it comes to setting priorities. Don't assume that prioritizing your workload is someone else's job. That would be true. Again, clear goals really help with that. And don't choose to see yourself as a doer or a worker bee. It's easy to point blame at our managers and organizations when we experience high levels of stress or an overwhelming amount of work. Recognize that consciously setting priorities is a key pillar of success. You can start by assessing how well you're handling the increased workloads that comes from being a leader today. Select a couple of areas to set priorities in. This can help the brain to manage information overload. Researchers have found that it's the overload of options that paralyze us. Paralysis by analysis, or lead decisions that go against our best interests. Two criteria I use with clients to filter for priorities include combination and contribution. Contribution and passion. Consider your goal today and answer the following questions. What is my highest contribution? When we reflect on contribution, we consider both the organization's needs and how we uniquely bring to bear strengths, experiences, and capabilities, unless they don't really care about that. The word contribution captures a sense of purpose, citizenship, and service. I like that. And Oxford, comma. What am I passionate about? Motivation and energy fuel action. So when setting priorities, get clear on what brings you your inspiration in your work day. This actually is interesting because where I was formerly employed, I tried to contribute from my strengths, experience, and capabilities. They seemed uninterested in things outside of a very, very narrow scope. And they didn't care what my passions were. And that was a problem. And that's why I don't work there anymore. So you can put the two criteria or contribution and passion together to create. You can put the two criteria of contribution and passion together to create an organizing framework. It'd really help if I read a little slower. The framework can help you sort priorities and define some. We got a matrix. Which task should you prioritize? Focus on that align your passion. Okay, so prioritize, tolerate, delegate, elevate. So yeah. So I'm just going to say what I think is going on here. So things that are high in your contribution and high in your passion, you're going to make those come first. Things that are low but you can tolerate, get those done. Elevate. So this was something to maybe help lift your passion up or help lift your contribution. And those are low, saving and delegate them. Quite often what happens, this is also where the frogs live. And sometimes you cannot delegate tasks. And when you have a frog, it's probably going to be here and eat it first. So quadrant one, prioritize those areas of your job that hit this sweet spot in this intersection of bringing your highest value add and making an impact. Now, part of that, being able to define and quantify your value that you add, is going to really be understanding your part in your company or whatever your endeavor is, whether you own the company or it's a company for which you work. That enterprise, what their drive is, what their goals are, and how your goals match, and that'll give you a way to quantify, hey, this is a task that's high in value. and see which projects, initiatives, and activities show up on both your high contribution and high passion lists. Tolerate those parts of the role that are important but drain your energy when you're dragging them. What are possible discomforts and what can we do about them? Tolerate and accept that you aren't going to love every part of the job. For example, you may be excited about having a larger role in a team, but less excited about the increase in managerial processes and administration that comes with. Yep. Tolerate the fact that you may be on a learning curve. Perhaps a key part of the job includes something that isn't a strength, such as presenting at town hall meeting. Okay. Remember, this is a tipping point of the quadrant. For example, your highest contribution in a strategy role may never offer you the passion you feel when coaching people. The quadrant could highlight that it's time for a change, which was my situation more 15 years ago when no amount of prioritizing was ever going to overcome the fact that I was in the wrong career. That's interesting. So that's in this quadrant here. So high contribution, but low passion for that. So basically, this is something you're probably pretty good at, but you're just sick of doing, or you don't really like to do it. So there's no drive behind it. And it can tell you if that's constant as opposed to every once in a while. This is part what the author is saying. And hey, this is coming from getpocket.com. I forgot to mention that. So quadrant 3, elevate these tasks that give you a lot of energy, but others don't see them as use of your best use of your time. This can also be an opportunity for education. Be careful here. This is how I got fired from a couple jobs. I tried to inform my boss that they were the best use of my time, but they didn't see it that way, and so they're former jobs. So evaluate the value add. Elevate the value add. Perhaps you see a hot new area, but the impact is less clear to others. Share what you're seeing on the horizon that fuels your conviction, and explain why it's not good, but it's good not only for. Oh, I'm reading a comma. It's a spot on my monitor. Only for you, but also for the company. There should be a comma there. Elevate yourself. Be mindful of areas that you still enjoy, perhaps from a previous role or from the company was smaller. Maybe you love to fix problems and have a bias toward action, which leads you to involve. And I actually had this at a former job that where we didn't have at IS. we were a regional office. So I'm not in Chicago, and we didn't really have an IS person, and I ended up doing it because I had an IS background. Ultimately, it's disconnect grows between what keeps you motivated and what your organization values. It may be time to move on. And what happened is people didn't see this, and when we discussed, I said, look, there are many people. Either I could not be billing for an hour or two, or 5 or 6 people, and so they said, hey, we recognize that, and we got some help with that, as well as when things weren't going right, our remote office would try and figure out what's going on, and so I had to do less response. Basically, they would get it to a point where I just had to plug and chug, and it was done much more quickly. Delegate. The daily churn of low value, low energy producing activities, emails, and meetings. This is not. If there's no one to delegate to, make the case for hiring someone. It also may be eliminate those tasks altogether. Yep. That's the other thing, just being able to say no, turn down meetings. You know, if you're being quadruple booked time and time again, because people believe they need your experience, that may be a sign. Number one, do you really need to say yes, or is it one of these things where, okay, maybe you sit down with that team and you impart some information on them and you kind of transfer that knowledge. They don't need you all the time. Or do you need some go-betweens between you and those other parts of the organization that you would then impart your knowledge into, and they would go on your behalf. So the irony is, if we progress in our careers, things that were once in quadrant 1 now belong in quadrant 4. That does happen. If people still come to you for those tasks, redirect them graciously by saying something like, it's so great to see you. I know how important it is. I asked Kate on my team to take care of it. Again, delegate what you can. And if you're not in a position to hire, then I would talk to someone who is and say, hey, there's some things that need to be done that maybe an entry level position could do instead. Operationalize and flag priorities in your calendar. Look back on your calendar over the last month and to see how much time you allocate across the 4 quadrants. I personally use a color coding system in my calendar to quickly and visually see how I'm doing. So we got yellow, purple, blue, and no color for stuff they should get rid of. At the start of the week, flag all QI priorities. I like this idea, especially for someone transitioning. If you're going from, like, my background is computer development or program development. When I became a manager, I did less of this. Now, granted, it helped that I left the company and started a job somewhere else. But if I was transitioning, there may be some old duties and projects and stuff that I haven't worked on that maybe aren't well documented. Maybe I need to impart my knowledge on someone else, whether that be mentorship, whether it be recording, video on it, maybe having a meeting once a week until all the information is well understood. So I actually like this. So I like this idea. I guess you could color code it in your, your calendar and stuff. So this looks like it's by Amy Jin Soo. I'm guessing. And, cause it's not clear who's prioritizing what. And this is a while ago. That's kind of odd. Not sure what they're saying here. An interesting approach and alternative, the Eisenhower Power Matrix for productivity. In spite of the headline, I believe managers' role is to develop leaders, not followers. And a part of it is being able to set priorities. Yep. That is right. I agree, because helping other people set priorities means you have to make decisions, and that's leadership. That's not management. Management is to defer. Simple way to know. See, what I don't understand is this looks like it's quoting, but then there's nothing here. So anyway, I like this. I'm gonna definitely keep this bookmarked, and I really like these concepts, and it's quite simple. And delegation may be the hardest thing, but also maybe this could be something that you should be letting go and training someone else to do, or maybe someone else's, because maybe you've moved on to another team, and those old duties are actually getting split across a couple of teams. So look for those opportunities. All right, thanks for stopping by. Thanks so much, and we'll see you. Goodbye. I know. Starting these at 9:30 at night is not good. Should have done this at 7. So much wasted time. All right. So do we sound good? All right. We're going to go. All right. 3, 2, and 1. I got to hit stop. Right? I got to hit stop.